Hey everyone, Rob Paul here. Thank you for joining me to explore this Leo new moon. What this Leo new moon and lunar cycle has to offer us for our highest growth, evolution, transformation. So let's jump in. So we have the Leo new moon, and one of the first remarkable things about it is that it's the first of two consecutive new moons to take place in the sign of Leo. So you see, we have 13 lunar cycles in a year, but only 12 months, 12 archetypes to work with. And so, therefore, there's always back to back, once a year, there seems to be back to back full moons, new moons within the same sign. I know last year there was back to back full moons in the sign of Sagittarius. And this year there's back to back new moons in the sign of Leo. And so, what does that mean symbolically? Well, the new moon is always a time to, plant seeds, plant intentions for something that will then blossom over the course of that lunar cycle. And that's always large in part to do with what the archetype of that new moon is. And so, we look to the Leo archetype. The Leo archetype is very much about our creative self expression, our self actualization, and just our inherent sheer joy just for living, just for being alive, without a reason. Um, for example, you look at a child 4 or 5 years old, and they're just expressing themselves. They're just happy to be alive. They're not doubting it. They don't have the self consciousness built in yet. And that's very much an ideal that we can look towards for the archetype of Leo. And so we come to the Leo new moon, and to understand what this is, we would first look back to the previous lunar cycle to see how the progression of things has gone. And that lunar cycle is very much about, embodying, who we are truly, on a really deep level, like really feeling it, and perhaps really feeling into a lot of change and transformation that had taken place recently and allowing that to root deeply within us. And so then, with this lunar cycle, with the archetype of Leo, it's about taking that deep feeling that we have, that rooted strength, and allowing it to express itself into the world. So rather than the internal function of building the roots and the foundation, this is now about the exteriorization of that, of how we can offer ourselves and our gifts to the world in the most creative way possible, in the most self-expressive way possible. The most self-expressive way that's inherent for us, that's natural for us. And how we can really self-actualize, our innate potential. And then when we look at the new moon, we have Mars in Leo, right next to it. Mars, Aries, always representing, our instincts, our instinctual will, what we do without thinking about it. What we do without, being concerned of what other people are going to think about us, or without having these conditioning factors, say our parents or our society telling us how we should be. It's those first instincts and then acting on them. And so I see this very much as guiding us towards, how we're going to be expressing this new person that we're feeling, that we become, that has rooted within us. How is that going to find its way into the world? We don't know what that's going to look like before it happens. We might have some ideas, but really the best way to follow that, particularly in this lunar cycle with Mars, there is to just be guided by our instincts, be guided by what we feel we want to do. And we feel like we want to go do something, and we do it. We feel like we want to express in a certain way. We just go and do it without overly thinking about it or being concerned of what others, will think of us in that process. Also, in this new moon, we have a square from Uranus to it. Uranus, in many ways, pointing towards how we can best individuate, how we can best, free ourselves from any prior conditioning to really embody our unique selves, within this lifetime. And the square conflict is often one of challenge, one the square aspect is one of conflict, often, and so there can be perhaps a little bit of challenge in breaking away from that, maybe in attachments to who we thought we were, who we still want to be acting as. Because we all build, certain false personalities, certain parts of ourselves that we're expressing that are not, truly innately us deep within, and a lot of times that's due out of necessity, and maybe there's been a lot of benefit to them. Uh, but as we progress in our journeys of evolution and growth and development, there very much becomes a need to break from those false selves that we've been, those things that are not us on a core level, um, and re-engage with our deeper selves and allow that to express itself. And very much tied into that, there's a trine from Chiron to this new moon. Chiron being, the wounded healer archetype, the wounded parts within us. Um, and I see that as a very much a way to perhaps integrate, a wounded part of ourselves that maybe we're not wanting to own, maybe we're not wanting to look at, maybe we're kind of wanting to just, shovel off to the side and not pay attention to. But whenever we do that, it requires an amount of mental and emotional energy to keep the lid on that, to keep it, tucked over here, to keep it repressed. And that's, mental emotional energy that we can be using for our to give our gifts to the world, for our growth, healing, and just for our enjoyment of lives, just to, embody that joy, that innate joy of living. And so when we can integrate all those parts of ourselves is when we can, one, reclaim that energy that we're spending, to repress something, and then two, really be, our whole self, not fractured by, any pains, hurts from the past, but really come together as um, who we are. And it's only when we do that, when we're really like united in who we are, that we can fully express ourselves, that we can fully give our gifts to the world, um, and really continue to reach higher and higher levels of fulfillment and happiness, and abundance, really. So there's a lot of potent stuff that's happening there. And of course, I started off this talk talking about how this is the first new moon cycle of two in Leo. The next new moon cycle in Leo is, of course, going to be the total solar eclipse that people have been looking forward to for so long. And so what that really means in a lot of ways, I see, is that, there's just more time, there's more energy around allowing how we're going to express ourselves, how we're going to, really embody our own healthy self-expression, our own healthy Leo archetype, um, for the greatest good, for our happiness and fulfillment and healing, and to offer our gifts. um, so there's definitely a lot of potent things working with this lunar cycle, with this new moon. um, and I hope that was helpful. you know um, and also, since there is so much potent energy around this, and with the two eclipses, because of course, the full moon of this lunar cycle is going to be a partial lunar eclipse, and then subsequent to that, 2 weeks later, will be the total solar eclipse. There's so much potent transformational energy. I felt called to offer my evolutionary astrology readings to people, completely donation based, for the duration of this lunar cycle until the total solar eclipse. And so, if that calls to you, if you're really looking to uh, kind of have some more insight and guidance into how to best work with this potent energy for your healing and transformation, then please reach out, and I would love to assist and guide you in that. So again, thank you for watching. It's been really fun doing this, and I'll catch you next time. Blessings.